All right. Let's start. Okay. And it looks like we've got things functioning. So good morning, everyone. Every one. Got somebody here. Um, and we'll see how things go here. Wait for things to warm up. It is gloomy, rainy day here in Chicago. There's going to be rain falling and dripping on my air conditioner from time to time, which you may hear as a sort of a rat-tat-tat sound in the background. Um, so big day though in sports world. It's the men's final at the U.S. Open, which is going to be starting after I am finished with this stream here. And I've been rooting for Carlos Alcaraz throughout the tournament. I mean, he is just absolutely amazing. He's on fire. He is, playing back to back to back 5 game matches, 5 set matches, and he is in incredible shape right now. I think he is probably the competitor who is in the best shape. Just amazing. He's just really, really prepared, and an opportunity to become the number one ranked men's tennis player in the world. So yes, that's going to be happening after the stream. And luckily, they, of course, in Arthur Ashe Court Stadium, they do have a closable roof. So that should be fun. But yeah, as people are joining, we are going to be talking about the year 1991 in music, and it's a really, really. I mean, 1990 was really quite good, but 1991, I've been listening to releases from that year, and one of the more interesting things that I was piecing together, I'll talk some more about, is how there was a lot happening in the music world with acts, and which ones got attention and which ones didn't. And some of the ones that didn't get a lot of attention were really incredible acts and deserved the attention. But there were a few others that, deservedly so got lots of attention. But it didn't necessarily get spread around all that well. So we'll get into that. Hello there, from Black Sonic Wafer. Be sure to check out Big Adrian Blue fan. And I noticed that your last name is, I believe, Blue also. I'm just wondering if there's a relationship there, some connection, distant cousin or whatever. Perhaps there isn't, or maybe I'm thinking of somebody else right now. And yes, I will be bringing up people, and I've got lots of. I pulled some CD. I have lots of records for year 1991, and I pulled a lot of CDs also, because this was a time period when there wasn't a whole lot being released on vinyl. Most everything was being released on CD, even though there was masters were still being created using analog, but then they were being digitized for pressing, and they were getting better with the quality of some of these compact discs. That there wasn't so much compression going on. They weren't just slapping ones out. There was a little bit more dynamic range, and then as Chris was saying, that's what I was buying. So some of these CDs that I am going to show today are the original CDs I bought at the time that this music was being released. It wasn't until many, many, many years later, within the last 5 or so years, that I started to hunt down vinyl versions of these records. And there were some really good ones. There's a couple controversial ones, I think. With some of the bands for at that time, and hey Ryan, nice to see you here. And it's kind of a Wales Day, I think. Here, I mean, I kind of associate sometimes Wales with a lot of rain. And I know that's probably not true, but maybe it is. Because as the Beatles sang, sitting in an English garden, enjoying the English rain, it can be rainy, and that's the kind of day it is. It's very drizzly, cloudy. This morning it was almost as dark as night because of the clouds that were going through with the weather. So anyway, we'll see how things go. So if we've got anybody who has some music that they pulled from 1991 and wants to talk about it, we've got the invite here, and so you can join the stream. 1991. There's a lot of stuff here, and what I was well, yeah, a lot of, as I say, a lot of very important things happened in 1991. But yeah, and I see I get that siren going on outside, and so when you get the the cloud and the rain, it just amplifies sound, coming through and all that. But it was just a crazy year, and it was a year when I started buying music again, and it's Mother Nature's perfume, sweet perfume coming to pick me up. So here we got Chris from Record Talk. How you do? Record Talk. Let me pronounce
however you want to say it. I don't care.
It's important, though. Good to see you here today. How are things been going?
Hey, pretty good. I know I've missed the last couple of weeks of your show, but I like to make it today. So
hey, no problem. I mean, this is also you're in academia, so there's some time to be getting ready for. I don't know. I suppose the semesters have already started.
Yeah, we're almost a month in. So
yeah, it's weird how I know people who are either graduate students working on their doctorate degree, so they've got to do the GA thing and teach classes, and then others that in the different universities in Chicago, some of them are on semesters, some of them are on quarters. I never know when they're starting, when they're ending. It's just that was a long time ago for me.
Yeah, I'm on semester, so we usually start mid-August and we'll be done by early to mid-December. So
nice, the really nice long, holiday break.
Yeah, it'll be about a month. So
When I worked in a private school, we used to call the stretch from roughly Halloween until the term break in December for Christmas. We called it the Straits of November
Yeah.
because, I mean, there was Thanksgiving, but this was a boarding school. And so not a lot of kids left, to go home over Thanksgiving. So there was just like this really long stretch of time that was, there was no breaks from school. And yeah, we called it the Straits of November because we staff sometimes we would start going crazier than the kids.
Yeah, because I know like November will be like one of my busiest months, so that I'll be on like online less than usual. April's that way as well. I had a friend of mine who does like taxes for a living, and so like April is like insanely busy for him, and it's kind of that way for me as well. And I think the spring even more so because you've got people like graduate students writing their thesis, they're trying to get the thesis done, like academic councils. You're trying to get all the new course curriculum proposals through by the end of the school year. So April's kind of busy too.
Huh, okay, cool. Well, hey, we get started here, and
Yeah, they don't want to hear about this. They want to see some records.
that's right. But I'll also send the link out one more time, and in the event somebody else, has something, pulled. I've got a lot pulled, so I'm prepared. Well, we can start with you, Chris. What do you got?
Oh, let's start with probably one of my all-time favorite Seattle grunge records. It's going to be Mudhoney. Every good boy deserves fudge. What I'm holding here is a recent 30th anniversary reissue. I have the original CD somewhere. I didn't pull it out, but so obviously Mudhoney never became as commercially successful as Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Soundgarden, but I I think this was the best album of their career. This was on Sub Pop, and the weird thing is then they got signed by a major label, and I think they put out the worst records of their career when they were on the major label. Then they got good again when they went back to Sub Pop.
Interesting. That happens sometimes, Like what
Yeah.
happened to Neil Young when he left Reprise and went with Geffen.
Yeah.
That whole scene too. I've got some records that are about that because, like you say, there were certain bands that sort of grabbed the spotlight, but there were these other bands who were there before, the Nirvanas and the Pearl Jams, and were releasing some very, very strong material, but they just kind of got overlooked.
Yeah.
And didn't necessarily, like I say, catch the spotlight. But great, great stuff. Mudhoney is one of those bands that I remember they would be playing them on 120 Minutes. That old show
Yeah. Yeah.
on MTV, and so I knew about them, but it was I guess I didn't. I was surprised because I don't remember seeing a lot of their CDs, at least where I was living at the time, which was in Montana. I probably would have picked some up if I saw their CDs. Well, Jorgen, good to see you this morning or this evening at where you are.
Here it's 6:15 in the evening.
Yeah. How are things there?
It's pretty good.
Good. All right. Well, then I suspect that you have some records pulled from 1991.
No, I just came by to say hi and bye.
Oh, okay.
1991. As you can see, I turned 17 in 1991. I thought 1991 was a really good year. It was still like 1990, a year that stood in one foot in the 80s and one foot in the beginning of something new, but it was slowly taking a step towards something new. And I liked it very much, the slow build up for something new, but you could still enjoy a whole lot of old sounding music. It was music with great pop here, very much great pop, uncomplicated pop that I really like. So I'm starting here with the best that I can ever find, because this is an album that I have ranked as the best album ever. If you picking up an album and want me to say that what album is your absolute favorite, have for all the years I've known picked out this, and it is Bangles Susanna Hoff's solo debut, When You Were a Boy, because she has, as usual, a marvelous voice, and it is filled with pop pearls, such beautiful and extremely well made pop pearl. It is sadly underrated, but it is definitely a really, really well made, cute and magnificent pop album filled with amazing pop pearls that I like, each and every one of them.
What was the artist's name again?
Susanna Hoffs from Bangles.
Okay, from the Bangles. Okay. See, now that's I know of the Bangles, but man, I just I never picked up anything by them. It was so much music out there, so many acts.
So Jorgen, was there a song called "That's Why Girls Cry" on that record?
Yep.
I know that song because I'm like a bigger Juliana Hatfield fan than Susanna Hoffs, and Juliana sang on that song as well. So from that album, I know that the guy who is like the producer of the Bangles had an idea that he was going to build like a new Bangles type of band with Juliana Hatfield, but it never happened.
All right. So is that an easy one to find nowadays, or is that one that's not quite as much in circulation?
Depends on where you live, because it wasn't a huge hit in Sweden, but it is not that hard. I've seen it a couple of times in thrift stores and so on. I would assume that it might be even easier in USA. I don't know, but there are way harder albums to find, if I say it like that. But it wasn't a big hit, though.
My guess is most of your stuff by the time you hit the 90s in the US is like easy to find on CD, not easy to find on vinyl. And I think vinyl hung on a few more years in Europe than it did in the US.
Yeah, here in Sweden, I think that at least here where I live in Sundsvall, it wasn't until 1993 until CDs, vinyl was completely phased out. Back in the early 90s, in 1991, there was still you could pick both pretty easy, which you ever wanted.
Yeah, I remember in the 90s at the store. Of course, now I was living in Montana, and so very rural area, and it was difficult to get to a town like Bozeman or Missoula to go record shopping. But by then, I can remember in 1990, 1991 that the music stores, no vinyl at all, period. It was all CD. Everything was CD.
Cassettes were still hanging on, but
yeah, because there were still people. I still had a cassette player.
The interesting thing is that people are saying that the 80s were the year of the CDs, and I can honestly say that now I didn't check that all, but up here I didn't see hardly one CD during the entire 80s.
Yeah, records were still, even where I was living in the mid 80s. I remember there was this record store in Santa Fe, New Mexico that I would go to that was huge, and it was nothing but vinyl. and this would have been like 1986. All right. And then like less than a decade later, of course, I don't know what happened to that store. He had a huge inventory. He probably had an inventory of 10 to 15,000 pieces. And it was just an amazingly huge store. So I don't know what happened to him because I had moved by that time, but at least up in Montana and the northern states, yep, nothing, CDs and some cassettes. That was it.
I'm going to say that I got my first CD record as the Christmas present from my best friend, back in the Christmas '92. So I was a genuine vinyl guy until I had no choice but to convert in around 1993.
Well, welcome, Stunty. What do you have for us today?
Yeah, the most obvious stuff. But before that, I must say that I have a completely different experience than you guys with the vinyl in the 90s. I was living in the suburb of a big city in Paris, and I think that the vinyl never disappeared. It's mostly that people stopped paying attention, so it got increasingly difficult to find them in smaller places. But for me, 99% of the stuff I was interested in, I could find it on vinyl. Like, I mean, 99% of the stuff I wanted got released on vinyl during the 90s. It's only that, like, most people couldn't find it because people weren't looking for that on vinyl as well. Like, it's not just that when people say, yeah, there was no vinyl. Yeah, well, you weren't looking for vinyl either. For when I go in deep in the conversation with the people, often I notice. Of course, there's exceptions, but yeah. But yeah.
I was going to say, there are some records that I like that were only released in the U.S. on CD, but had European releases on vinyl during that time period. And to get them on vinyl now, I either have to import it, or if it's been a record that's been reissued recently. But yeah, U.S. definitely vinyl largely disappeared quicker.
No,
and like Richard, I was also living mostly in fairly small towns. I'm sure it would have been a different experience if I'd been living in Chicago or San Francisco or New York City.
But Chris, were you looking for vinyl?
I'm literally talking about there are records that you go into Discogs in 1993. It was released in the U.S. on CD. There's a European version that was released on vinyl, but the only way you would have gotten it on vinyl is if you'd gotten an import.
But you and I have a lot of similar taste in rock, like in indie, punk rock, and all that.
Yeah.
All that stuff was mostly American, and all that stuff was released on vinyl. All.
Yeah.
If you do
there are some cases where it was only released in Europe. I mean, some cases where it was released in the U.S. If you were living in a small town, you probably didn't have access to it.
Absolutely, but were you actively looking for vinyl during the 90s?
No, I'll admit I was CDs in the 90s. I wasn't looking for vinyl, but I think even if I had been, it would definitely be tougher for me to find than you to find where you were living.
Often you hear people saying, "Yeah, you couldn't find them," but if you weren't looking for them, of course you weren't going to find them.
Well, that's kind of like saying when you're walking in the woods, you don't see any bears, but are you really actively looking for bears? So
I showed Mudhoney, Jorgen Short, Susanna Hoffs. That's all that's been shown so far.
Okay.
So you're up. What do you got?
The first one from 91 that I found here, Jorgen is going to be happy. Make Me Big.
EMF.
It was unbelievable. I'll spare you my melody of it. It was a big indie dance hit. EMF is almost like a rock band. Yeah. See? Yeah.
I might still have that in my cassette box. I didn't go digging through my cassettes.
It's a good song. It's a good popular song that is a little bit quirky. The singing is very, very English, very like Manchester indie rock, and it's the production is great. And I don't know, maybe it's a little bit cheesy now, but the fact that this was a hit back then is a little weird in a way, because it's not like Madonna, it's not like a boys band thing, it's not even like the Happy Mondays or anything. It's really, I mean, they only had this, right? They had the album with that, and that was it, I guess. But
I say that it was a song that was, I thought it was pretty good at the time, but the problem was that then most of their songs sounded like that. And then I got very fed up with that song. I got very, very tired of it. I heard it way too many times. And then I felt like, no, I don't want to hear that one anymore. And then I got fed up with the entire, they used the tricks that had been used on 9 million kind of dance songs before that. So
yeah, but it was kind of
bored of it fast.
But it was then, and when you play it today at a party, there's the nostalgia, but it still works. It's like the bass player, the bass line is great in it. It's really it's not like a fake thing done in 2 seconds in the studio.
I still enjoy
and the singing is pretty gritty.
To this. I haven't listened to it for like a super long time until I started thinking, that there were CDs from the 90s that I picked up that I want to get, on vinyl. And so I've got Jesus Jones on order, waiting for that to come out.
Jesus Jones is a kind of there's like Meat Beat Manifesto Consolidated, EMF, and Jesus Jones is in between. It was too weird to be commercial and too commercial to be to appeal to the weird. But
the thing too about the song Unbelievable,
it's like
that I learned from Robert Fithen. Well, I'm sorry, you froze up, so I couldn't tell if you were speaking.
Yeah, I saw.
But what I learned from Robert Fithen, that there are so many F-bombs that are dropped in the song Unbelievable. I mean, just one right after the other. And it got played on radio. No censor.
We're going to talk about his voice. That was one thing that I maybe got a little bit annoyed with, because it sounds like he has taken I don't know what kind of drug it sounds like he's taking, but that plus Valium is you're unbelievable.
Good. He's probably doing Molly.
Come on, Jürgen. It makes it more gritty, and makes it more original. And he's still singing. There's this whole, Manchester kind of singing, like there is almost like rapping in a way. But there's a melody, and he's got a good voice. I mean, it's.
I'm going to give you that is original.
Yeah, he had this.
No doubt.
It was almost insouciant, was his delivery. So, I did love that. Well, I'm going to show something here.
Wait, Rob, Richard, you were planning to show it as well?
Yeah, it was in my pile of the CDs, so that I have pulled. So, but no problem on that. So one of the things I was talking about at the beginning was in 1991, certainly, and then, Chris had mentioned it, bands like Nirvana and Pearl Jam, and others really, really commanded everyone's attention, largely because of, radio was playing them nonstop.
Because it was good.
They were good, but there were a lot of other bands that were also really, really good and innovative that tried to make splashes, and they did on that 120-minute song, but they didn't quite snap to the next level. And one of them is this band here, Poster Children. This is a really incredible album. I remember hearing, there we see that Chris has got that one too. Yeah. I remember seeing on 120 Minutes, the video that they did for If You See K. And it was just, really struck me. I had to find it on CD, and I did. I found the CD, so I also have it. I didn't pull the CD though. and they had a lot of really great songs on here, and also some very, very strong releases after this. And what is unique to me is different to them than what the other sort of grunge acts were doing. They, in that I also think they did better, all right, but they didn't get the attention that they deserved. I mean, everything about them, it was a combination, a little shoegaze, a little just plain rock, hard rock, and then a little bit of, that fuzz and distortion, of grunge. What they were really good at, to me, was working the intensity level, where that's the shoegazy part of it, where they would be doing something really like quiet and repetitive, and then bam, they would hit you with this wall of noise, and then building up the tension even more, and then boom, retreating again to almost a whisper. And they use that technique in a lot of the songs. The title song, Daisy Chain Reaction, is really, really quite clever in a way, where it's talking about nuclear reactions, and how quickly they spread, as in reference to the daisy chain reaction of a nuclear reaction. But they were talking about how love can be exponential, exploding, and can have as much power and can spread like a daisy chain reaction. There was a lot of that going on with music in the 90s, where people were talking about, singers and songwriters were talking about, that they were talking about love. They were talking about real, true freedom of expression, and that, getting caught up with the ways of the world, was unimportant. It just wasn't as important as we were thinking. And, so there were people in the 90s, just like there were people in the 60s and 70s, singing about how things are getting bad, right? And a lot of us didn't pay attention. Some of us did. And now we're at a point where, oh my God, we got to pay attention now, or things are going to get really bad. The new generation, I think, is so much more motivated than my generation ever was. We were for a while, but we bought houses.
Like what you described, Richard, like the whole punk rock ethos from back then, it was like what we used to call it slacker rock, slacker music, which is basically a nice way to hide that, like, it's all depressive and hopeless.
And you've got some bands that are really sort of capitalizing on that now. I mean, Car Seat Headrest, really, a lot of what Will Toledo writes about is he's talking about, the depression that he feels personally, but also how the world around him actually exacerbates that. And he sees, like the song Killer Whales is such a great example. It doesn't have to be like this. We can get out of this car. We don't have to be drunk drivers anymore. We can get out of this car and start walking. So it's been going along there. But I do believe Poster Children, I mean, I love their stuff. And it was, they're Illinois, from the heartland, so to speak. They came from Champaign-Urbana area, the University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana. And they were doing great stuff. They just didn't get the spotlight. They produced a video at the same time Nirvana did for Smells Like Teen Spirit, and it was getting play on MTV, but everybody was swept up by Nirvana, because it exploded and really captivated everybody. And I'm not saying it shouldn't have, but that just overwhelmed, and for a while, Poster Children were kind of lost.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Poster Children, I saw them play live once around this time span. It was probably like 93 or so when I saw them play live. They definitely had sort of, I know sometimes people describe it as sort of the quiet, loud sound. And I'm going to kind of segue into, can I segue into my choice here?
Yeah, yeah.
So I was going to segue into, I mean, the Pixies were known for that, but I'm going to show a couple other of your Boston area alternative rock. So I've got the Blake Babies with Rosie Jack World, which was their EP before they broke up, and Throwing Muses with the Real Ramona. Both of these bands feature female vocalists, Juliana Hatfield with the Blake Babies, and you've got Kristen Hirsch and this when Tanya Donnelly was still in Throwing Muses before she broke off to do Belly.
And before Kristen Hirsch also broke up and went solo with her best record ever.
Yeah, but Throwing Muses was like the Real Ramona, I think, was the last one that had sort of their classic lineup together before people went off to the various other projects that they did.
It's a little bit of an acquired taste. I mean, her voice and her singing, I think that it took her a while to get it really, now I am who I am. It took her years, but it was still an interesting journey to see her mature. And it's good music. It's really good. But sometimes it's also a little bit off, I think, but in an interesting way. But they're
cool. I don't have any. I remember
Throwing Muses were on 4AD, which was the same label that the Pixies were on,
and the Cocteau Twins. And I think that the Throwing Muses were the biggest band on 4AD with the Pixies after the Cocteau Twins thing.
Yeah. From the U.S. perspective, I think the Pixies were always bigger over here.
Oh, of course, they were better.
Cool. Well, then, Jorgen, what do you? You're so pensive there.
I'm going to change style totally.
Okay, no problem.
I haven't shown anything from my big love of jazz, mainly because most of them are from the past. There are none of them from the 80s and 90s. Very few of them, I would say, very few of them. But 91, they were released a great live album with one of my absolute favorite jazz musicians, Jimmy Smith. It was an album, live album that was recorded live in November 1990 on Fat Tuesdays in New York. And a couple of months later, this was released foremost. And it is a really cool nightclub feeling with Jimmy Smith's fantastic Hammond organ and really nice groove. And we have a great version of My Funny Valentine with vocals of Grady Tate, the drummer, and highly recommended jazz album with great mood.
There's a bar here in Chicago called the Green Mill, where there is this during their happy hour, there's a guy playing an organ, and playing jazz tunes, on the organ, and he's been doing it forever. Old blind guy, just been playing these songs forever and ever. So I am talking about the Hammond organ. That's just what made me think of it.
I am a huge Hammond organ fan. I usually say that a lot of shangers that I normally don't like can be saved if they put on Hammond organ in the song. Like blues, I don't like blues rock all that much, but put in a Hammond organ, and in my opinion, it's a groove that is totally different.
Yeah. All right. Well then, Stunty, that brings us back to you.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to change style. I'm going to follow Jürgen's lead and show a jazz record from 91 also. And I would say that the jazz musician that kept jazz alive as an alive music, relevant music during the 90s is John Zorn from New York, who inserted a lot of klezmer and Jewish culture, but also really tried to make jazz grow. And he had this band that released their first album in '91, Painkiller, Guts of a Virgin, featuring Yamatsuka Ai as the singer, who's basically screaming in Japanese with distortion, and Justin Broderick from Napalm Death and Godflesh on guitar. And it's just a pure animalistic assault on your ears, with, of course, the saxophone being the main instrument. And it was a revelation record for so many people. That was the entry door for so many people of my age to jazz, actually. And it says the original photographs intended for use on this sleeve were sized upon entry into the United Kingdom by Her Majesty's Customs and Excise, and were destroyed for allegedly contravening the Obscene Publication Act. So, bye-bye, Queenie, bye-bye, Queenie. Anyways, yeah, it was a record that was very, very important for a lot of people. And weirdly enough, a jazz record that was co-released on Earache, a grindcore label.
Yeah, you don't hear about a lot of, new jazz. I mean, they were coming out in, the 90s because, after the peak popularity of jazz fusion, I don't know, there didn't seem to be a lot going on. It probably was, but it just wasn't getting pressed in large quantities.
Yeah, I'm someone who I didn't listen to any jazz when I was in my teens or 20s. It was later on in life when I got into it. And I got into it probably the way that most people you see in the VC get into it, with like the classic Blue Note stuff from late 50s, 60s, maybe some stuff from the early 70s, but not really stuff from 1991.
Yeah. That was lucky.
I never heard of John Zorn.
John Zorn he's probably the most famous jazz man of the past 30 years. He has labels, and he's huge. I've seen him live in Paris for like at the Grand Halle de la Villette in front of like 5,000 people. And he has an ensemble called the Barkoba, one other called Masada, where they do like traditional Jewish music, but in the context of jazz and free jazz. And he's look him up. He did the music of Ennio Morricone. He's basically the last great name in jazz throughout the whole 90s. He's the name in jazz that was. He's been around since the early 80s, actually. But quickly, it's a record from 92, but because you were mentioning so much the Daisy Chain, I wanted to show quickly a record I'll show next week. If I hear my favorite band from 92, Daisy Chainsaw.
Daisy Chain. That was Daisy Chainsaw Massacre. Wasn't there a band called that?
No, I don't know. Daisy Chainsaw it's this like indie noise psychedelic pop band that is like, the cover says it all, and it's I love it. I'll talk about them another time, but just because you say Daisy Chainsaw, Daisy Chain.
Think of that,
yeah.
Well, another record that was a sleeper when it was released in '91, and eventually started, catching on in popularity, but it was very slow growing, and that was Spiderland. There's Chris's got that one too. Yeah. So and I ended up watching Breadcrumb Trail again last night, the documentary. This is there's so many things. You have to watch that documentary to really appreciate what went into creating this album, the quirkiness of these. By the time they were doing this, they were college age, but these were that, like, when they were 14 years old, were playing clubs and jamming, with Jesus Lizard and Big Black and these others, and they're from Louisville, Kentucky. I mean, it just
Louisville.
Yeah, Louisville, and it.
But
so
this is a Chicago record.
What's that?
It? But this is more of a Chicago record, isn't it?
Right, because what happened is with the first album, Tweez, I mean, they went up to Chicago with Steve Albini, and recorded it there, and then after they graduated high school,
they stayed there.
They went to Evanston, to Northwestern. The two of them did, and it was a couple years before they got all the material put together to do this. And again, it was recorded in Chicago, and pretty much a live take. I mean, they were compartmentalized into different rooms or whatever, but it was a live recording, and that there's not much in terms of overdubbing going on.
And boy, must they have struggled to record that, because there's lots of complicated playing on this.
Yeah, and they had a weekend. If you watch the documentary, they got in on Friday night and they had the studio for the weekend. So they were, they had to pull it together and get the record done, and they did. And then, so this was actually recorded in 1990. But what happened is that Mike, one of the original founders with Britt Walford, Mike McCann, I think is his name, checked himself into a mental hospital right after recording. The experience absolutely, drained him. There are reports of his vocals on the final song, Good Morning Captain. He was screaming so hard that he vomited in the studio, and was just completely exhausted. So they had this record, and there was no tour. They didn't play it live. Before this record was released, you had Britt Walford playing with the Breeders under a pseudonym. And the difference in drumming style is like night and day, but his drumming on the Breeders' Pod it's simple, but just spot on. He is like one of the greatest timekeepers in terms of a drummer, that's been around, because as Stundy was saying, some of these songs and it's complicated. It's complicated, but it's not.
It's like, for me, and by the way, both of you, like, I bought this on CD back then, and it's one of the few records that you guys have. I don't have it on vinyl, and I'm jealous because I've been after this for a long time. But for me, it is, in a way, it's weird. It's almost like it's a prog rock record, but with very little happening in a way. But the ideas behind it are very progressive. The aesthetic is completely different, but philosophically, it is a prog rock record, in my opinion.
It employed. This is when I say it's a sleeper, because it didn't get a whole lot of attention. It was, but Nirvana, and again, I say rightfully so, that these other bands were getting attention, but this sound was in development, perhaps even earlier than, because they were working on this pretty much ever since Tweez, and
they were called very quickly. By 92, like people who were into that kind of music, they were one of the biggest.
Oh yeah,
names.
It year after year, like they say in the documentary, it just kept selling more and more and more, and so the fan base started to.
I mean, I was 15. I had a Slim T-shirt in school, and
that would have been so cool.
And I was in the suburbs of Paris. I mean, even if I was a little bit different, it was still like not. People paid attention to them. They noticed the difference in the music. They probably didn't sell a lot, but for the critics, it was like, wow, this is one of the. And 91, we'll see through this show. 91 is maybe the last great year for rock and roll, in my opinion.
There's, you can certainly make a very persuasive argument for that, because there was so much happening.
Yeah.
And I keep going back to the scene that there were a few bands that were getting all the attention, rightfully so, but there were a lot of other bands who were just as good, just as innovative, and you really had to find and find them, and you did. So Chris, yeah, you look like you were ready to show that one too.
It was in my
one of those.
So,
are you two doing this together, or?
So
you doing this together, you both of you?
No, and I have to admit that's one of those records that I wasn't even aware of at the time it came out. It's kind of funny that Stunty, he's younger than me and knew about it when he was a teenager in Paris, and I was a little bit older before I discovered it. Eventually, I heard the name because it's like it was like if it like everyone who's cool is into this record, and I eventually found it, but it wasn't like I had it. I didn't buy it in 1991, so.
Neither did I. I didn't hear about Slint until maybe 5 years ago.
Yeah. So I'm going to switch gears on us again, like Jorgen did with jazz. So the main era I listened to hip hop would have been in the late 80s, early 90s. Now I'm going to show you a recent Vinyl Me Please reissue, but I'm going to show you a Tribe Called Quest with the Low End Theory.
Yeah.
So I'll be honest, like a lot of the hip hop from that era, some of it is aged really poorly in with like being really sophomoric, but A Tribe Called Quest, I think, ages just great. It's something that you can listen to in 2022.
I want to get that record.
So it's on fancy colored vinyl. So.
Woohoo!
There are some other hip hop records from 91 that I would like to show, but I either don't have it at all, or like I have my Public Enemy Apocalypse 91 is on like a cassette that I didn't dig out. I thought I was going to show Beastie Boys, but it ended up being 92 rather than 91. And
I was thinking about that. I looked, 91 is not the greatest year for hip hop. Yeah, there's some good stuff, but like, for me, it's either before or a little bit after. I noticed, but there's obviously that's a great record. It's funny. I was thinking yesterday or 2 days ago about my relationship with hip hop, and because on Rachel's stream I showed so many because I thought it was fun because someone finally had passion for hip hop on the.
Someone showing hip hop on Rachel's stream as a novelty.
Yeah. But it made me think that like. What do I actually think of hip hop? And I realized that for me, hip hop and metal are the same. They're both. I can't justify either, because they are so both in a way limited in itself, so niche in its own logic. But I love hip hop. I can't justify it, but I love it. I have a lot of it. I wouldn't like try to convince anyone that this record, that record is great, but I love it. Metal, it's all crap, but it's the same. I mean, do you get like how both have this quality that appeals to youth probably, but that is so unrefined that like it's very easy to dismiss it also.
Yeah, because I would say hip hop, most of the stuff I like was from like late 80s, early 90s when I was in college, and probably when I was being exposed to it the most by other people. Most of the metal I like is from earlier in the 80s when I was like high school, middle school age. And I never really got into, I know there's a whole world of like underground metal, extreme metal that's always been basically a foreign world to me.
But both in a way. Like if you think as an adult, I'm going to talk about music with other people I don't know. I don't know their taste. Like hip hop and metal would be the two types of music that you would, if you love either of them, you would be wary of how you start the conversation about that with other people you have no.
Yeah, at that time, that was probably my introduction at that time to hip hop and rap. And there was a lot of it that just, but I was listening to groups like Us Two, Arrested Development, that were a little more, they weren't.
I think
The
the
one
term
that
that was sometimes used was conscious rap.
Yeah, the ones that gave you an excuse, like an intellectual excuse.
Yeah, it more cerebral, I guess you say. And nowadays, I'm listening to more, whether it's Aesop or Haslow or somebody like that, and I really really enjoy that. Us Three, yeah, Michael Valentini. I really liked what they and Arrested Development and some others were doing. I wasn't a
For me, I can't
boogaloo.
listen to that kind of music anymore because it has too much, like as we say in French, its ass on or its legs on two different chairs at the same time. It's trying to be this and trying to be this at the same time, trying to be deep in the culture, but also have an excuse for people who are outside of the culture so that they can, okay, this is acceptable. And for me, it kind of kills the thing that makes it exciting. I appreciate
the rawness.
it on the technical level, but it's a little bit of a cop out sometimes for me. I know I'm overthinking it, but yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, Jorgen, what do you got?
I haven't said anything because this is totally way over my head. So, this might feel a little bit after hearing about your more totally more stuff that it isn't all that commercial. Now I'm going to take it right back to the commercial side. I know it sounds cheap, but that is me. Learn to live with it. I am a synth popper, so why wouldn't I fall when OMD released Sugar Tax? At the time, Paul Humphries had quit the band, and Andy McCluskey ran this on his own and turned it more to regular pop, but still with a synth bass in it. And it is a real. I listened a lot to songs from this album in the 90s. I think this is one of my absolute favorites of all of these albums. One of the many great albums. I think this is one of my absolute favorites. So Sailing on the Seven Seas, such an really gives me a total summer feeling. I listened to Pandora's Box so many times, and Walking on Air, a really great ballad. So in my opinion, a real 91 classic. Commercial, yes, but really sweet and high nostalgia for me.
I still wish I could remember that one OMD that I used to have that I really liked. And then I bought Dazzle Ships, and I really hated that record.
I'm not going to say that it's total crap, but it's definitely not one of the strongest. I agree with that.
Yeah. And I just can't remember what that one was that I liked so much. And I don't remember if it was the one just before Dazzle Ship or, I have no idea. Anyway, Stunty, what have you got going for us here now?
Again, I'm not going to steer too far away from Jorgen. And you know how people talk about the perfect album. So Richard already knows what I'm going to talk about, maybe. Like, an album where you actually love there's not a single track that you would take out. For me, there's only one. Out of all the pop music, because jazz is different and classical music is different. But if you think about records, song-based or track-based, there's only one album where I just take everything, and it's from 91. And I got all the singles from that album. I even got the American versions. And it's the only album I have the original and the reissue of, because the reissue has the 2 extra tracks that were only on the CD. So this is LFO, Frequencies. LFO is the band that kind of started Warp Records. And the album is basically a compilation of of all these singles, plus tons of extra tracks. And this is bleep house, house music, techno. It's all like there's this track called LFO, which names all the influences, which is Africa Bambaataa, Depeche Mode, all that, and everything is in there. Actually, Mark Bell, the main guy behind LFO, went on to produce Exciter by Depeche Mode. He went on to produce almost every single, or co-produce almost every single album of Björk. He did so much stuff, and he had such a great sound, and so with minimal gear, they managed to do something that was so powerful that, like, when the album was released in the US on Tommy Boy, this is the single with US remixes. This was a big success on cassette in the US because it was used by car companies because it was the best music to test your sound system in the car. Because it's so bassy, and people who wanted to have a very powerful sound system or stereo in their car, that was the music basically they used to test it, and they advertised it as such in the US when it was released. But this album, like in its complete form, the double LP, 14 songs, I believe, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, yeah, 14, and it's all LFO, and every song still managed to have a different mood, it's very melodic. Some of it works totally for the dance floor and is timeless. Some of it is just beautiful melodies, electronic, obviously, so that you can listen at home. And I know Richard dipped his feet in this music through a Peel session of that music. But
right, yeah, that's all. This is the only one I have. And
yeah.
I'm on the lookout for them. So,
but this album really, I think, it changed the life of a lot of people of my age and a little older, because it kind of really made us like the whole, what is scary about like the nightclub culture, rave, dance, disco, and all that. This kind of really broke the wall for that. Like, this was okay. I can get behind this. It's a little edgy and maybe scary, but not scary in an identity way. It's not like my sexuality, my race, or anything, even if it's in there. But it's a bit like Nirvana in a way. Like, the melodies are so strong that despite the whole genre and culture behind it, which can be a little bit intimidating, like, it wins you over. And Jürgen would love half of that album for sure.
I've heard of the name LFO, but haven't listened to all that much to them.
Yeah, it's one that I have a quick list whenever I go into a new record store, and if the proprietor is friendly and is chatting, then that's what I always do. I go down my list and say, "Do you have any of this? Do you have any of that?" And LFO is one that I always bring up.
When I bought the reissue with the complete track list, I felt a little silly because I like these tracks, but I have the CD as well, and I was like, I'm not getting this. This is stupid, because I have too much emotional connection to the original album, so I know I'm not gonna get rid of it. But now the reissue is worth like $200, so I did good.
Yeah, it is crazy at times what happens with some of
and by the way, their second album that came out, I think in '94, made me realize, like, if you listen closely to it, one of the main influence that, like, I think that will talk to Jürgen is, you realize that on the sound production, but also the kind of melody system, is like, I think the main influence is Art of Noise, Trevor Horn. Like, you see a direct connection between the kind of melodies they had, and also with Yellow Magic Orchestra. So much so that, in the early 80s, 90s, there was all these remix albums. And there's a remix album of Yellow Magic Orchestra with all the big names of electronic music. LFO is on it. And same with Art of Noise. I have both of them. They're not great, but they're fun. But just the fact that I saw these records before the second album and thought, like, I'm happy to have them, but they're a bit cheesy, non-essential. And then when I heard the sound and the evolution on the second album, okay, he didn't just cash in on the offer to do a remix, a high-profile remix. It actually made sense for his personal music history.
Yeah.
Let me first, before you say anything, why I still remembers it, because I just keep forgetting it. I got message from James before this broadcast, and he said that he wasn't feeling good. He had a problem with his stomach yesterday and was still not good, so he will not be showing up. He says hello.
Well, kind of moving into, along the same route here. This next one I want to show is a band that, or a project or whatever that I didn't hear about at all in the 90s. All right, wasn't aware of them, what they were doing, and only recently, only recently because of our man Stunty here, and all of a sudden, I've been looking for it, and all of a sudden, it's showing up. It just in stores. I'm finding it. So I've got 3 of their records now. This is one of the ones that I just recently picked up. Yeah. So I'm not entirely familiar with this. This is Coil Love's Secret Domain.
LSD, more commonly known as LSD, as you can see on the cover art. If you look closely, what. Can you show on your big screen the cover art?
Yeah. So, and then down here you've got the subtitle "Out of Light Cometh Darkness." So, and then on the back cover,
Nurse with Wound actually painted the cover for them. It's a artwork by Nurse with Wound, the cover art.
I mean, you can see how this is. Yeah, this is texture. This isn't just flat.
Wow.
It's almost like, this is a pretty incredible cover.
It was painted on the door.
Right, yeah, you can see the planks of wood. And very this is the amber, I guess you could say, the amber wax with the one that I bought. So, and the inner sleeves, it's got the words and everything. I'm not entirely familiar with all the music yet. I've given it a couple listens, but I really, really like it. The song Teenage Lightning is so far my favorite, but I need to keep giving some more listens to it and become more familiar with the music. But yeah, the 3 Coil records that I have now, each one different, than the other, but each one of them just so amazing. Even like in my recent video, I was talking about Music to Play in the Dark 2. I don't have Music to Play in the Dark 1. But yeah, it's just all these records, I've been looking for them. And then I got this one and another one from a store in Kalamazoo. And
which label is that one on? Is it the Wax Tracks pressing or the Russian
this
pressing?
Is the Wax Tracks pressing.
And is it a double or a triple?
A double.
Oh, good. Then you did really good. I'm proud of you, Richard, because they did a triple LP version of that had some extra bonus tracks and some cutting floor material that they didn't intend to be released, and that actually kind of lessens the album. Like the double was because, again, when it was released, the vinyl version had only, 9 tracks, while the CD had 11. So you got all the tracks on 2 pieces of wax. And back then, when it was released on CD, you could also order directly from them an album of variations of that record that was only released on CD back then, but now has got a vinyl reissue, which is this one. It's Stolen and Contaminated Songs, which is stolen and contaminated songs from Love Secret Domain. And it was, I would say, it was their first album that got real commercial attention. There was 2 singles with remixes. It was weird music, obviously, so it was not like a commercial success, but it put them on the map in a different way than their previous records. Because I think there's one song where Mark Almond is singing, and it's quite pop, but it was also influenced by the burgeoning acid house and club culture. It's not directly like house and techno. There's no tracks where you could go and dance in a nightclub at 2:00 in the morning on it, but it was influenced by that. But it's also industrial. It's also post-punk. It's also pop, and it's also gay culture, like very much so. Music for sexual, male sexual energy, but it's also esoteric, magic, and it's. I discovered them a few years after this was released, I think in '93 or '94, through 9 Inch Nails, and like it was like, wow, this is a whole other level when you start to pull the layers and see how much depth and how much it's like. Basically, when you're a teenager, but even an adult, and you discover them, they are a gateway band in the sense that they will introduce you to so much more. Basically, all of their songs has some hidden meaning or references that will take you to some other music, some other artists that will like either please you or not, but at least it will make you grow.
That was something I noticed. What I hear with the song Teenage Lightning is that I hear it's they're not copying a melody directly, but I get this vibe of bolero in the music, and so yeah.
And would you say that, like, of course there are like, I would say that depending on the song you first hear from them, you could be like, oh no, but on the same record they actually could be something for you.
Yeah. And also the pressings so far are just amazing. Absolutely dead silence, in the grooves.
That's because the labels who are behind these reissues, they're fans, so they you don't have these problems like with reissues of rock records that were on big labels in the 90s or 80s. Like that rarely happens.
Very good stuff. So that I'm learning more and enjoying the listens. So definitely getting more into this. So Chris, what have you got?
Okay, so I'm going to quickly give Michael Pilmer a shout out because I noticed in the comments he had mentioned the Cop Shoot Cop.
I love this record.
Although I'm actually going to talk about this record.
I was wondering when it's going to show up.
Somebody had to show it, so I'm going to get it out of the way. I'm probably the right person to get this out of the way. So, as you've heard from what I've talked about, I was in high school in the 80s, college in the late 80s, early 90s. I was somebody who kind of grew disenchanted with the music that most of my peers liked as hair metal got more and more ridiculous. You got into the Def Leppard stuff, especially Hysteria and Beyond. Skid Row, damn Yankees, God, Warrant, God, this was all shit. I was getting more into like the 80s alternative bands at that point of time. And one of the things that people like me really like about Nirvana was it kind of squashed a lot of that stuff dead. Sorry, in the Peanut Gallery, if you like some of those bands. Obviously, we've tried to talk about some bands like Poster Children and Throwing Muses. I might have a couple more that probably should have gotten some of the attention that Nirvana got. But, I mean, this is the CD I bought in 1991, probably at Top Notch Records in Laramie, Wyoming. I got the album more recently because I just decided I needed the album. Just obviously a standard reissue. But I remember when I first got this album, generally when I got the CD, generally when I got a CD, there would be like the 2 songs that I already heard on MTV or the radio. I'd listen to them. I'd listen to a couple more. A lot of times it'd be hard for an entire CD to keep my attention. For years, I would listen to this back to back, never skipping a song. I mean, eventually some of the songs got overplayed, of course, but I mean, there's a reason why this is a great record.
When I first heard the Smells Like Teen Spirit on MTV, you know, I was like totally blown away. But when I got the CD, this is my original CD too, that I bought at the time, and I was listening to the rest of it, I'm going like, yeah, Smells Like Teen Spirit's a great song, but there are some better songs on here that are just absolutely amazing. Does yours have the Endless Nameless?
If you got it in 91, yeah, it does.
Yeah, it would be the secret track, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is not on the vinyl version I got on the
release
date, which I remember I skipped school, or the afternoon school. I remember it was a first day, the day it was released in Europe, and I was at the Fnac at the shop, like waiting for them to arrive in the racks to put the clerks put it out. But the Endless Nameless is on a B-side of one of the 12-inch singles of it, and this is the bootleg from back then with all the demos for the album that they did in 1990, a year before that, when I first discovered them in playing live opening for Tad in the suburbs of Paris, and would change everything for me. And what Chris said is totally right. Like, for me, it was a liberation in the sense that it obliterated all the hair rock metal. But also one thing that is even more important than that to me is Endless Nameless, because I also got the CD eventually of that and some of the other tracks. It really introduced me to a notion that no one tells you, no one teaches you that in school or when you're a kid, which is that, oh shit, noise can be beautiful, and noise is psychedelic. And this is really, like, you talk about the Poster Child and other bands. Nirvana had something more, because they had like Kurt Cobain's melodies, not his lyrics. The melody he sung were like, if you play a Nirvana song with the guitar, you're gonna play the melody he's singing, basically. And because he was so great at making simple but very catchy melodies, like the Beatles, basically. But also the contrast between that and the noise aesthetic that they took to that they didn't compromise at all on, which is, imagine you're a kid, like you were still a kid, Chris, and had you heard anything like that back then?
No, I mean, I was 22, so I just turned 22.
Yeah, and
I was a young adult, but yeah, it was like, yeah, this is different. And then I remember a couple of years later, I was living in near a ski area in Colorado, and I was working at a job cleaning condos. And what I would do during the day is depending on what condo I was cleaning, I put on the stereo or I put on MTV just to listen to something. And I remember exactly when Kurt Loder came on MTV with You Know What. So
that pop sentimentality really is strong in their music. And they talked about, at least Kurt Cobain did, maybe some of the others did, they were huge fans of ABBA. You know, and the whole style of that pop song. And, you know, you can kind of hear them doing some of that. I ended up getting, for the vinyl, the 30th anniversary. So it's a four disc. So there's a lot of other material in here, including different, you know, versions and a lot of noise, really good noise on here.
Is that other material worth it? Because I just have the one disc.
Yeah, it is.
It's all the B-sides of this.
I've listened to it though.
Yeah.
I feel
like
like
you named ABBA like that. Years ago, I did an interview with Céron, the biggest French disco producer and drummer, and like basically the French ABBA, who was almost as big as ABBA at one point. And I got to his studio, which was his office, like a museum to himself, like all the posters and the guy was very nice, but he was full of himself, and because he has all the people who say you're the greatest around him, but he was nice. And I noticed in the hallway to get inside, there was I don't remember what it was, but there was a reference to Nirvana, and I asked him what why, and he told me that in the published Kurt Cobain journal, Kurt Cobain had written about a dream he had where he was actually being saved by Ceron riding a unicorn, and it's totally random, but Kurt Cobain and Nirvana was so big that a guy like Ceron tried to cash in his own mind with the fame of Nirvana, building a connection that is so thin, but making a story with it about him. And it shows you the influence, the impact it had. It is just incredible. Like Jürgen, obviously it's not your favorite kind of music, but
you say?
Yeah, but you were there. You can't have missed it. How did you experience that?
Let's just say that when three people in a row sitting holding the same album and talking glory about them, it's not the right moment to say that I don't see the greatness of Nirvana, never have, never will.
Absolutely.
But I'm not their target.
No, but I'm not surprised. But you still lived when it was released, and you were how did you experience when?
I didn't hear Smells Like Teen Spirit the first time until it entered a hit chart here in Sweden called Trackslistan. That was the first time I heard.
Well, it happened quite fast.
Yeah, it happened quite fast. That was the first I lived with that chart for its existence. But I heard it first time then, and it went into second place, and I was thinking, oh my God, what have we gotten into? Because I felt like it was almost like heavy metal gone in total different way, and this is not my thing. Is this the future of the 90s? No. So I was definitely not hearing the greatness in it, and I still don't. I don't understand.
Spoiler alert, Gordon, it gets worse later in the 90s.
Yeah, no, but besides the greatness or not greatness, Jürgen, when you heard it, did you think, I don't like it, but this is different? Did you have that, or was it or didn't you even think about that?
Maybe I noticed that it was something different from what was on the charts and from the rock that has been. I noticed that, but maybe that was why I at the first listening shied away from it, because it was too rock and it was way more different. And of course, I heard there was something different, but I could never see that it would be a beginning of grunge or something that big. But of course, I heard it was something different, but I didn't pay that much attention to it, as I felt like I never want to hear it again. Unfortunately, I wouldn't. My prayers wasn't answered by that.
So Jürgen, I have a question, because I know a lot of people who don't have a taste for heavy metal, hard rock, punk sort of music, and some of those people liked the acoustic Nirvana. Did you like the acoustic Nirvana, or was that
none of it? If we're heading forward, Smells Like Teen Spirit, because Smells Like Teen Spirit is the most rockiest thing that I have heard them do. I find him way too fuzzy. I find it too depressive. I don't like his voice. It sounds like he's going to fall asleep. Kurt Cobain.
Well, you don't like fuzzy and depressing. You're not going to like Nirvana.
Yeah.
Well, he was almost always on the nod, so
it was
no wonder he sounded like he was going to sleep.
Too fuzzy. So I acoustic or not, I couldn't stand Kurt Cobain's voice. I couldn't stand their sound.
When I first heard the Smells Like Teen Spirit, and then I listened to the CD, to me, the something earth-shattering was happening in the music world, and it made me think of this. That it was music that was changing the direction in a way that hadn't happened since like Miles Davis. The way
it was a 180.
Yeah. So it definitely Yeah, that was going to be the whole, part of the thing that I wanted
I'd
to
much
work
rather
in.
listen to that album you just held than Nirvana.
But it had the same impact. It really did have the same impact on the world of music because people.
But cool
probably
jazz.
even had more.
The problem is that grunge became a huge phenomenon on the hit charts. Cool jazz never made it that big. It was a little bit more stuck with. It made an impact for the jazz fans, no doubt it might be.
It's
but
funny
not for
because
the music overall in the way that grunge did on the hit charts.
It's only Nirvana who really hit the charts with the grunge, because like all the Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, that's not grunge. That's something else. That's more classic rock, and it has some connection with that. But for me, it's not surprising that Pearl Jam is popular. The fact that Nirvana was popular, that's also an anomaly in a way, because they had the fucking noise. There was something it's beyond the music. There's no, like, Sonic Youth never made like a tenth of the success of Nirvana. Mudhoney doesn't even exist in the mainstream, or it's.
Let's just say that I'm wrong person to judge what is grunge or not. But to me, Soundgarden is grunge. But I don't know. I'm the wrong person to.
Yeah, because what I would notice with the Seattle era bands, when you're talking with people in the vinyl community, the people who love 70s rock, they like Pearl Jam. Yeah. The people who like metal, they like Alice in Chains, they like Soundgarden, they hate Nirvana, they don't know who Mudhoney or Tad is.
But when I grew up in the 90s, I always figured that Metallica's Enter Sandman, and when they got more commercial, that was the change of metal.
You know what happened there? It's that you will love this, Jürgen, and I can tell I have this information from first hand, and I maybe have already told it to you. What happened is that Metallica for years had pursued one guy because they wanted to change something in them, and guess who it was? It was their stylist. They pursued the stylist of Depeche Mode, and they got him, and that's what happened. And if you look at them, like, it makes sense. Like, what happened with their style? They cut their hair. So they had like leather jacket, but like skinny, nothing, no spikes or anything. They went to Depeche Mode.
Yeah,
let's just say that something good. That's the only thing that came out of good of Metallica.
And the thing is, if you were on like a metal guys panel show, that's when Metallica lost those guys. They all like the 80s thrashy Metallica.
Well, then, Jürgen, what have you got?
Can we change style? I will.
Okay, do it.
Do something more funkier, because
Jürgen is our anarchist. You are our loose cannon.
Thanks. I know. I've always been in my entire life. I've always gone against the stream. So I'm going to go with a band, an artist that I've shown a couple of times, and that this year made, in my opinion, maybe his best album. Maybe that is against the stream also, but I'm talking about Prince and the new Power Generation's Diamonds and Pearls. This double album is fantastic. It is a whole lot cooler and smoother than many of Prince's later and maybe previous albums. Maybe that is why I like it. Money Don't Matter Tonight, fantastic. Cream, and I do like the title track, also fantastic. And Get Off, sadly underrated Prince song. It is smooth, it is cool, and at the same time it is filled with imagination. And I really like this. This is one of my, it's not my favorite Prince album.
I am unfamiliar with that one.
Well, Cream. Cream was his last big hit.
I wouldn't say that. That when it was called The Symbol, Most Beautiful Girl in the World, was pretty big also.
Yeah, but not real. Cream was like everywhere. Beyond it, like, even if you didn't like Prince, Cream was like, Cream was as big as Time and Kiss. The Most Beautiful Girl was like that. Yeah, well, agree to disagree. I don't particularly like.
But I definitely say that comparing to what it was definitely one of his final big hits. I definitely would go that to say, because later after Beautiful Girl in the World, it was good, still really good, but it didn't become just as big.
So yeah, Stunty showed that one already. Right,
I
that
have
was
all the
the one.
singles.
Yeah.
My first fan letter to an artist was to Katie Jane Garside from Daisy Chainsaw.
Well, then that does bring us up to you, Stunty. What have you got?
Yeah, another band that when I discovered them, they were a bit scary to me. I discovered them on a compilation, and there was this track that I kind of liked, but it felt like really druggy, and I was like 14, and quickly, like, I came to my sense a couple of years later, and this is the Spaceman 3. This is their the last album they did, recurring with the single that I love so much, Big City. As you can see, it is quite psychedelic, and if you think about the cover with all the pills ejaculated from this is there is a connection with that. This is basically as if the Jesus and Mary Chain had been influenced by Bo Diddley, Delia Derbyshire, La Monte Young. So minimalism, ambient, electronics, and pure rock and roll. And this is also one of these records that is difficult to beat. It's to think that in 1991, Nevermind came out, this came out, Trompe le Monde came out, and some other, like there's still one of the biggest rock and roll records ever that I'm going to talk it later of. But this is, to this day, the guys behind this band are my biggest influence, because they were so ahead of everything, making music that is almost normal. But when you start to learn more about music history, they were referencing stuff in their music way before the academics, way before the journalists discovered back some of the stuff that now is taken for granted. But that in 1991, like, you had to be like a scholar, an underground, like, pirate scholar to be aware of all of that, and to manage to make all these influence melt together into a cohesive work. The first two albums of the Spaceman 3 are more straight up like fuzz, rock and roll, and this is where, like, weirdly enough, it all falls apart within the band, because they are so strong guys in it that they have so strong ideas, they can't work together anymore, and yet this is the most cohesive album they did. At the same time, there's like 3 different projects emanating from that band that are released also between 1991 and 1992, early 92. But so this is gets almost less recognition than the first album from Spiritualized, the first album from Spectrum, which are the main bands of these guys after. But it's still kind of the culmination of it all. And yeah, it's basically, when people talk about shoegaze, this is one of the 2 ultimate shoegaze albums, even if people don't realize it is sometimes, but they should, and most do.
Yeah, I guess, well, you see, I remember too from watching, there was Loveless. I can't remember if it was released 90 or 91. But okay. But this one here that I want to show is the first time I heard it. I was still living in West Yellowstone, Montana, which is kind of like living in just this like black hole. It's just one of these towns in the Rocky Mountains where if you're not careful, the town will suck your soul, out of you. It's just it can be kind of an oppressing town. I mean, it's like 300 people. It's just, tourist town because you're next to Yellowstone Park.
Richard, I don't know if you know this about me, but I grew up in Cody, Wyoming, which is basically on the other side of Yellowstone.
Yeah, okay.
I worked in Yellowstone Park. I worked at Mammoth Hot Springs, the hotel there. So I know the area. I never lived in West Yellowstone.
Yeah, it's it's cool being next to the park and all that kind of stuff. But boy, I tell you, talk about it's like Hedwig in the Angry Inch, where he's singing about the small town, and trying to get out of that town before it eats you alive. But I was at we were partying at somebody else's place, and they were playing this. All right. So let me make myself big here.
Oh yeah, we're getting into that genre. I know that genre well from working in Yellowstone, living in Colorado. The ski bum type of music.
So this was like when I first heard it, super super amazing. I ended up getting this CD, and then eventually I found it on vinyl. And I figured that it would be, and it's very cool vinyl. I mean, it's I'll pull one of them out here. Very, very cool wax with the marbling, and really happy with that. And I got the vinyl because, it says on the back here, it's AAD. So the original source material is analog. And then it was, eventually, put out on, compact disc. So I figured, okay, I'll get the vinyl, because it'll be good. That's a terrible pressing. It's a beautiful record, but it is an awful, awful pressing. I only listen to the CD. I won't even listen to that record. But I go back to that notion of sort of a lot of very nihilistic songs on here. But there are a couple songs on here that I think are just absolutely beautiful love songs, or songs about love, such as, let's see, which one am I thinking about? Well, An Optimistic Thought and I Have My Moments. Those two songs in particular. But The Optimistic Thought to me is such a grand anthemic kind of love song that and it really really works. So there are just so many great things that were on this. This was just another album that came out in an idea. I haven't really picked up anything else by Blues Travelers. Sometimes a record will resonate with me so much that I don't even want to bother. It sounds weird. I don't even want to bother to investigate anything else by the band.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's that's it. I don't need to hear anything else because I don't want to be disappointed. Kind of. Maybe that's it. I don't know. But yeah, I never after hearing that, I just didn't want to do anything else.
I have that CD. I have another one by Blues Traveler. I'll be honest, I haven't listened to either of them in years and years. I kind of associate them and I used to be a lot into Fish, and I'm not into anymore. Big Head Todd and the Monsters. I kind of all associate all those with smoking pot at somebody's house when I was 20, 24. That's what I associate that record with.
I never heard it. Never heard about it.
So. It's give it a listen to sometime. Mm-hmm. There's it's not your standard pop music in terms of song structure. So they're I almost said anthemic, but they're not really anthemic. But they're more operatic. They're more operatic, I think, in the way they're structured. So, all right, moving along to something else from 91. Chris?
I think it's my turn. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to show one that I'm pretty sure nobody else is going to show. I don't know if you guys know this group. The group called Mary's Danish. This is my favorite album by them, by Circa. So they were a 6-piece band out of Los Angeles. They had dual female lead singers whose names were Gretchen and Julie. I don't remember their last names off the top of my head. it's kind of got that funk rock alternative sound to it. So if you like Red Hot Chili Peppers, Faith No More, you might like Mary's Danish. They had a cool cover of Foxy Lady on here. This is a story of a band that got completely hosed by their record label. There's lots of those stories. And this Morgan Creek, which was was like a movie company that decided they were going to make it big as a record label. And this was one of the early bands they signed, and they were completely incompetent and basically ruined any chance they had of making it. So, but I still have the record. I like it. It's on my vinyl. It's on my wish list. And it's like one of those really hard to get ones on vinyl. It's never been reissued because I don't think enough people know or care about them these days. But I like them.
It sounds tasty.
I guess they are Danish.
You know.
I've heard the name, but I've never heard the music, or I don't remember it.
Yeah,
I would assume that they aren't Danish.
No, they're an American band. So my guess is I don't think Stunty would like them as much as I do. So,
well, never know.
Yeah.
So, Jorgen?
I'm going to go to that dance genre. It's supposed to be anyway, that I was heavy into in 1990. This is an album that I discovered more recently than 1991. Bomb the Bass, Unknown Territory. This is
Bomb the Bass?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
This contains the hit single "Winter in July" that is so beautiful, and here they actually tried to take the dance music into little new territories.
Yeah.
Maybe that is why it's called Unknown Territories. You can actually hear parts of what later would become Big Beat, actually. And it is unpredictable, experimental, and I like this one. It is you never know what's going to happen. It's like a playhouse. So definitely a really great album, but especially this single "Winter in July."
They were extremely important in the UK. I think they aged very badly, very quickly. But I really respect that their music and what they did. It's more electro, but they were adding singing, so it was a little bit indie, but it was really grave culture in the UK. And they were also their first single they nicked the Watchman symbol from the Alan Moore comic books. So they were really part of the whole alternative culture in the UK, anarchist, anti-Thatcher. And it was like really a zeitgeist band, and they still exist. I think I know I have a record of theirs, a collaboration in the early 2000s.
Well, Bomb the Bass were more or less one person, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, it's this, and I think the guy from Bomb the Bass is also he's not like he's half Pakistani or something like that. He's a colored guy also. It's
let me also say that I'm for a guy who constantly walks against the stream. I don't hear what this sounds dated or not all that much. To me, it's good music is good music.
Well,
it sounds dated or not, I don't know.
The production is a bit cliche, like the drumming is like the break beat. It's not like it sounds like the drums sound exactly like the other bands from that time. The rhythms, the sound he had, like he had like a massive sound. It was something, yeah. You guys probably have never heard of Bomb the Bass in the US.
No, I did not know Bomb the Bass.
Now you know how I felt for 15 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, like the first that album that Jorgen showed and the record before that sold, I would say, millions in the UK, and nowhere else.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Then what's up next?
I have something that I would I hope, and I wouldn't be surprised if Chris knew them, and maybe even you, Richard.
Oops, I need to make you big. Hold on a second here. All right.
Well,
Don't
I know
know.
the name. I know the name. I know I've never had any of their music, so
12 were kind of an anomaly. They were like independent rock. They were alternative rock, but they weren't like the alternative rock aesthetic. They were that appealed to people who were both into Nirvana, but also stuff like more British stuff like the Smith and all that, the Pixies. But the thing is that the singing, the contrary to all these bands from the early 90s, the emphasis was on the singing. Like the singer of that band has a very deep voice, kind of bluesy, even if he's super white. And it was really about songwriting, which is not really the main objective of early 90s alternative indie bands. It's more about the sound and the atmosphere, the mood, where this is really, let's write really good melodies on the guitar and with the singing and have a voice. There's really not that much stuff like that in Europe. If you guys know, like something a little close to this would be Morphine. Morphine was a little more jazz because they had a contrabass, but a double bass. But I would say that it's the closest I could put them with. But they were quite.
yeah.
They weren't like obscure. They were like critics' darling, but no one really knew where to put them. There was no other band like them back then. So if you booked them, who would open or who would they open for? And they were a bit of an anomaly, and it has aged well because it's really about the melodies, and the production is quite simple. It's guitar, drums, guitar, vocals, and bass. Nothing special.
Yeah. I definitely know Morphine better than I know Swell. I have some of Morphine's records. I don't have any of Swell's.
Well, you will probably like this very much, and then it's back then. I remember they were like critics' darlings, and I think the album was in many lists and like best of records of '91 by the guys who were not just about classic rock, but. They don't have a big discography. I think that someone in the band died or something. I'm not sure, but I remember liking it back then. I had the CD, and I found the record by chance a few years ago, and oh yeah, I like them a little bit. I listened back to it, and shit, this is really good. There's a reason why this was appreciated back then, and it stood apart from anything back then. Also, even if it's quite classic in a way, but yeah.
That Morphine I'm very familiar with, and yeah, I agree. They're
very similar kind of
jazz
singing
than anything.
if you like the voice and the singing of Mark the singer from Morphine who died, I believe, like this is
okay. Well, a record, another one that was released in 1991 that really had a huge impact on me personally, mostly because of the situation I was in at that time. I was not out at that time, but I was getting to the point in my life where I was tired of being in the closet. It was like wearing me down. I was in a very low point in my life, and then I see the video for Losing My Religion for this record, and the imagery of Saint Sebastian that they used in that video, it just like hit me, and it was probably one of the catalysts at that time that pushed me into being stronger, braver, in terms of dealing with my situation. And on this entire album, I just loved listening to it all the time. I was living in West Yellowstone, and there was this road that I would often drive up because it went up to the top. It wasn't the highest mountain in the area, but it was at the top of the mountain. It had it had a radio transmitter and, some towers up on top of the peak. And you could, drive up there. And there was this fantastic view into this hidden valley of the Ruby River, which is actually the source headwaters of the Missouri River. So there's this valley down in there. And I'd be driving up this road. No one ever went up there, so I was always by myself and taking in this gorgeous view at sunset, playing this CD in my truck and listening to it over and over and over again. I mean, there's cheesy songs on this record, but it is just one of them. Actually, I think my favorite song on here is Me and Honey.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, Richard.
Yeah. Wow. That is just such a great song.
Yeah, because I was going to say, so there's the two songs that Kate Pearson from B-52 sings on, and Shiny Happy People is like one of my least favorite REM songs ever, and Me and Honey is one of my favorite REM songs
Is
ever.
anyone surprised if I say that my favorite is Shiny Happy People?
Well,
that is so happy. I love Kate Pearson's appearance there. I like the song.
Yeah.
I know that REM hates it themselves, but I just like it.
Yeah. I like Me and Honey a lot better.
Well, it's their biggest song by far. It's their only big song.
What?
REM's only big song? I don't know. I mean, it's a great song, but really,
it's one of the
Losing
two
My
big
Religion.
songs.
Yeah, Losing My Religion was that was the song.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Shiny People and Losing My Religion. Yeah.
Yeah, and Shiny Happy People, which REM said that they really didn't like that song.
It's only their only big song, but I'm not getting into that discussion now.
No, you could. Why not?
But I heard someplace in some interview where Michael Stipe made a mention that he likes that song now. But
because the interesting thing is that they didn't play it for many years. They didn't play it live. If you wanted to hear the song live in some form, you had to visit Kate Pearson's solo concerts because she was performing it.
Yeah, right. Oh yeah, definitely. All right, so what have you got up next, Chris?
Okay, so I guess I just like the depressing songs, and Jorgen likes the happy songs more than me. I think we've well established that. Oh, what am I going to show here? Oh, let's get this out of the way. Let's show some Pearl Jam.
Yeah.
So, 10. So, I have the CD as well. I didn't bother digging the CD out. I bought the CD in the day, and then I've got the newer version on purple vinyl. So we should look at some purple vinyl. So there's some purple vinyl for you. So, and I'll be honest, this is still the Pearl Jam record I listen to. In fact, my CD is in my car. That's why I didn't pull it out, because I didn't bother going outside to get it. And so that's the sign that that's the song I listen to the most. And yes, my car is old enough. I still have a CD player.
This is the only Pearl Jam I own, and when I first bought it, I listened to this a lot, and then I don't know, that was it. I never followed any of their other material. I think the song Jeremy was very prophetic. That we just didn't realize. Again, I go back to, people talk about, today that, trying to wake people up to what things are happening. Hey, we've been singing about all this stuff for a long time, and just people didn't really pay attention. I mean, that, a song like Jeremy, you say it's ahead of their time, but no, it wasn't. It was, it was this thing that people sang about, but it's kind of like going back to Nirvana. He's the one who likes to sing along, likes to shoot his gun, but he doesn't know what it means to say, yeah, that there was just a lot of that going on. So yeah. it's.
I mean, I have several Pearl Jam records. In a sense, they're like my generation's big classic rock band that persisted because nobody died. The band didn't break up early. I hardly ever go to like big arena shows, but I saw them a few years ago in the hockey arena in St. Louis, and I enjoyed it. And usually, if I'm going to go see a concert, I want to see it someplace that seats under 1,000 people. And obviously, I made an exception for Pearl Jam. So
it's funny.
Yeah, they play Wrigley Field here whenever they can. So
you talk about Jeremy, and it's the only song of theirs that I kind of resonate with a little, even if at the same time I hate it because it's so obvious. It's like, let's do our big song, our big U2 song, our big arena, like with lots of emphasis and like a showcase of power in a way. And I hate that philosophically, but like it's there's no but. It's just that it's very catchy, but it's almost it's like a trap. It's a Venus flytrap in a way. Like you're gonna get people with a song like that, but it feel for me it's to the point that it's almost cynical, and that's why I can't go the full way with them, even if it's so well done, obviously. Eddie Vedder, his wife had a band that released some cool music at the same time under the name Hovercraft, which was way more psychedelic and noisy and stoner. But so they were so close to that, but you can feel that, as Chris said, they didn't die, and there's a reason for that. They had discipline. They wanted to make it. You can feel that from this album already. That like, okay, guys, let's not be like fucking losers like Nirvana, Soundgarden. Like let's make it all the way.
And if you go back in history to like the 1980s, there was that proto-grunge band, Green River, where a couple of the guys went to Pearl Jam, a couple of the guys went to Mudhoney. Pearl Jam guys obviously were more into being commercial than the Mudhoney guys were.
I'm not even sure they were thinking in terms of commercial, even if it's what it is, obviously. Yeah. But like, let's try to I think
their influences were more commercial.
Yeah, but I think they were living in Seattle, and there's like you hear the stories. Half of them were garbage men, were working at butcher shops. So I think maybe the guys from Pearl Jam wanted to have to see the light in life. Like they were like, let's not go that dark path that these other are investigating that really rubs Jorgen, by the way, and rightfully so. It's a kind of clear-cut line in a way, I think.
They certainly, too, later on, really took control over their image and catalog because there wasn't a lot of marketing. If you knew about Pearl Jam, you knew about Pearl Jam. It's kind of like, I had the impression it was kind of like being a deadhead, that, you knew about them. You knew when their records were coming out. You knew when to get them. It was, they built a community.
MTV helped a lot. No, there was were they on Epic or something like that?
I don't remember because, like I say, after 10, I just really didn't pay that much attention.
Yeah, I remember it because I was buying, and I still do, comic books weekly. And as soon as there was a Pearl Jam record out, the back cover of every comic book at DC, owned by Time Warner, was a commercial for the new album by Pearl Jam. So I think I get what you mean, but no, they were a titan, a mastodont in the industry. Maybe there wasn't as much need to market it as an upcoming band. That's maybe what you mean. But there was for each album there was a world tour. There was video clips. There were
Yeah. All right, Jorgen, what have you got to?
I'm going to go.
It won't be from Seattle.
Oh boy. I can show Soundgarden a single if you want. but that's from '94.
Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong.
The only song I like about Soundgarden, Black Hole Sun, but that's from '94.
Yeah.
But I'm going to show something different, though. I said before that Jeff Lynne, as a producer in the '90s, got extremely stale. He did also, if I'm not wrong, Joe Cocker's album this 1991, and it was. I heard it when I heard. I remember thinking, "Oh God, I felt falling asleep," because it sounds. All of his production sounds extremely alike. I'm very sure that if Elvis would have lived, he would have he would have been recording albums with Jeff Lynne. But when I heard this album, there are some always exceptions to anything. I live by that rule that there is always exceptions to almost anything. And when I heard this album, I realized that the exception that where I do like Jeff Lynne as a producer is when he produced Tom Petty, because I bought Into the Great Wide Open, listened to it on my portable CD when I bought it a couple of years ago, and I realized that, oh my God, this was way better than I ever could imagine. It was actually really, really good. Then, of course, I would assume that has something to do with that is Tom Petty that doing the songs, and not Jeff Lynne himself. But it is sounding a whole better than I could imagine. It is a really great album, rock album, and definitely a favorite of mine when it comes to Tom Petty. So I definitely like this Tom Petty album a lot, so highly recommended.
I remember seeing the advertising for that record at the back of my comic books as well.
Yeah. Tom Petty was, that was kind of his zenith, perhaps. I've got a few of his records. I don't have that one.
I have a couple of them also.
If it's the zenith, it's also the start of the end, which is how I would have put it.
Yeah,
I think it's the last time the record company had hope and with him that like we can still sell millions of records of his to mainstream audiences. That album was marketed that way, that's for sure. I'm not sure I've heard the name Tom Petty after that outside of his already fan base. Like the music aesthetic had changed so much after that he's very much of a classic rock pop guy, right?
I would agree that after this album it wasn't didn't have that much big hits. It became what many older artists became, an album guy. When they released an album of someone like Tom Petty, it went straight up to the top because of the fans, and then it went downhill fast again. But this might be his final really big commercial success.
Yeah. Well, then that brings us to you, Stunny. What do you have next?
I'll talk about anyone who knew me between like 95 and 2005 or so, and even further, like they would know me, and the first thing they would think of after that they connected with me was a band, and I basically, it's the only band I have every single record of. Like, and when I say every single, is like I have something like 140 records of theirs on vinyl. I have more records from. I have every single remix or blah, 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 blah. I don't have every single version of their records. I only need one, but I got them. And their very first record was in 1991, and it is... Can you read it? No. It's Otaker.
Okay.
Cavity Job, which, as the name suggests, starts with the recording of a dentist drilling through a teeth. And you hear the voice of the guy who's not in... The anesthetist didn't do the best job. But it is pure electro that would become what most people know as like the kind of music Aphex Twin was doing. This surprisingly features a sample that I believe I'm the only one online who has pointed that out, of Hawkwind. out of everything possible. It doesn't sound anything like Hawkwind, except the fact that I love Hawkwind and I love Ottaker. So before knowing the connection, but this is, for me, Ottaker, what fascinates me is that every time they released a new album, I didn't know what to think about it, because it was always a few steps ahead of where my mind could compute what is going on in this music. It is very complex music, electronic music, but very much based on rhythm, structures, and tones rather than melodies. There are some melodies, or the ghosts of melodies in a way, but it is totally based on rhythm, and like it is music that is almost like science fiction, but in the romantic literature way. Like it's about the future, but a future that might only be in our minds. It will maybe not realize in reality, but it is about this aesthetic. Like when you hear their music, you feel you are in the future, but like in an entertaining way as well, because it's not like necessarily a difficult band, but every time, like when you're a big fan of theirs and they had like a new record out, you were like taken by surprise a little bit. And I mean, they're highly influential. I know it's possible to totally miss them, but they also gave me one of my best memories in music, as they curated an All Tomorrow's Party festival where they invited me to DJ between the bands in England, which got me to play before and after Coil, The Fall, Captain Beefheart and the Magic Band, Public Enemy. This band, all the influence they had, like it's insane what they managed to do, and how they managed to open the minds and the doors to so many of their fans. Their music nowadays is still the same. It's maybe a little bit less relevant, as it's become more about sound and experimentation rather than like communicating with us. They are very much in their own mind now. And when I buy a new record of theirs, I don't have the same excitement as I used to have, even if it's still great music and I need them. But this early one is one record I will freely admit has aged badly, because it is their very first record, and they're trying stuff. It's cool, it's great, but it doesn't yet have totally what really made Ottaker stand apart and be one of the two emblematic electronic bands of the 90s with Aphex Twin. But you have the seeds of that, and it's the only record they didn't do on Warp Records, their label. And yeah, this is obviously, they are deep into hip hop, graffiti, electro culture, as the first record cover shows. But yeah, it's also the very first record I bought online on eBay in 1998. Like eBay became a liberating thing for me, getting access to these records that had been released in the past, that 500 copies in the UK in 1991. How am I going to find that in Paris? Well, eBay, my very first, I think it was about the equivalent of 35 euros. I paid for that in 98.
I don't think I would be able to get past the opening track with the person getting their teeth drilled without any anesthesia.
It has it has a comedic aspect as well. It's not like it's not used in the track as a way to provoke or to be extreme. It's more funny in a way, because you hear the voice.
Okay.
And then
if I have any phobias about pain, it is dental pain. That's, I can tolerate pain in a lot of other situations, but dental pain is not one I want to deal with.
By the way, I promised a few people that I will make a video about Ottaker, because there are people who have been waiting for me to do that, because they know I have like a crazy collection of theirs, and they have like, if you do like a video, a clickbait video on YouTube about Ottaker, you will get 20,000 views. They are that influential, even if they are still underground.
Yeah. Well, there was this one band around that time that was kind of sweeping the airwaves, but they never really, I mean, they had a couple good songs, but they never really hooked me. And that was Oasis. They really never, there were a few things that I thought were really good. The band that hooked me was was Blur.
I love this record.
So backside here.
Sitting
So
on the
and
early
then I
train
have it on. I bought it, of course, on CD first.
Hmm.
So this is a recent acquisition on the very pretty turquoise vinyl, and sounds really good. But yeah, Blur. I really like this album, and I was listening to it the other night, and it holds up. It's still really good. There was a period where I liked it, and then I kind of it got old and a little bit saccharine to me, but then now I reappreciate it in what it was doing, and that and the album that came out afterwards with the dogs on the front.
No, that's the third album, because the second album is horrible. It's Modern Life is rubbish. I think, or maybe you're correct. Like they had either the second album or the third one was really trying to be the Britpop thing, and it really didn't work.
Park Life is the other one that I like.
Yeah,
Park Life.
Park Life is good. Yeah.
But this one, I can't remember if this was their debut or if it was the second one.
It's the only, it's the only record. I think it's simple pop, but it's very catchy. I dare say it's the only record I can sing the song of. Sitting on the early train, waiting for the underground train to rumble underneath my feet. I don't care anymore. Blah blah blah. It's one of these worm songs.
Yeah.
It's.
I'm going to be more of course against the stream. I'm a huge fan of Britpop, but I am an Oasis guy. I never understood the greatness of Blur. Welcome to my world, against the stream.
Yes. All right. So that's a good place to be.
I'm not my turn.
Yeah.
All right.
Just quickly about Blur. It's interesting to note that when you had suspicions that they were an interesting band, Damon Albarn went on to create Honest John Records, which released tons of great African music and from everywhere. The guitarist made some great soundtrack music. They did some weird songs, and there's a big rumor, that actually Damon Albarn is the natural son of Kevin Ayers, that he's the bastard child of Kevin Ayers, the singer of Soft Machine and etc.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I've never seen photographs to see if there's a resemblance, but
I never thought of checking. But yeah, sorry, Chris.
Oh, no problem.
All right, so what do you got, Chris?
So we're going to show a 12-inch single.
Oh, yes.
KLF, Justified and Ancient. I had to find this because I had the CD, and the CD doesn't have the version of Justified and Ancient doesn't have Tammy Wynette on it, and so I needed the version with Tammy Wynette on it. So I got it, and so we've got different versions. This is a German pressing. I found it in my local antique mall. I suspect the person that was selling stuff had been in the military, had been in Germany, because he had several records that were German pressings in it. So, but I think this is just a cool song. Don't know what else to say.
Yeah,
I just love it too. Especially it's a really fun bringing Tammy Wynette to the song, and I really like that. Have a really great beat.
And this is from this album, obviously, which used to be, up until quite recently, you could find in dollar bins. It was a record that people didn't care about, because it's probably the most influential record ever to introduce techno to mainstream audience.
Yeah.
And nowadays, if you want to find this, it's difficult to find a good copy of this for under $50. Suddenly, people are noticing, even if, again, this is one of these records that now it's not timeless, but it is good. It is still good. What Time Is Love is incredible. There's an Echo and the Bunnymen remix of it that is insane, and there's an original connection between Echo and the Bunnymen and the first band from the guy from KLF in 1979, 1980 in Liverpool, where Echo and the Bunnymen wanted to be part of that, or Ian McCulloch, but yeah, there was some drama, and it was fun that like 10, 12 years later, there was a connection through KLF. Yeah.
I actually think this is a good album, but I have one problem when it is almost the same problem as I had with Depeche Music for the Masses, and that is, of course, that overall the singles are in different verses than what they are in the radio edit, and especially here in this case, Justified and Ancient, that has a regular vocalist. It doesn't have Tammy Wynette on it, and it sounds hasn't the same groove as in the singles. So that is the only problem. It's overall a great album, with exception from that the singles are in an album versions mostly.
And it's funny. This is, in my opinion, their other album that is like probably aged even better, much better. Chill Out, which it was released in the US on Wax Tracks, actually.
I have that one also.
Yeah, with one of the best covers in history, in my opinion. Like, so many people have actually made. I mean, obviously it's a reference to Pink Floyd, but this cover has been copied more than the cover that they copied from Pink Floyd. So it's yeah.
All right. What do you have next for us then, Jürgen?
Well, it saved me at KLF. I'm going to show a 45, and it is because I don't have the album of it other than on the cassette copy, and I feel like showing a cassette copy. No. But the album is great, and this is a limited edition of Simple Minds, who came out with the album Real Life this year, a really great one. This is a limited edition of the single Stand By Love. It's so really great groove, really great, huge and powerful atmosphere. This is a limited edition, individually numbered, includes exclusive color poster. It is a number 10,220.
Yeah, very limited.
Yeah.
It was the last one.
So isn't that like the standard press number?
Oh yeah, because there's like I have a Sub Pop CD compilation that was released in '91, and it says limited edition of 500,000 on it as a joke.
But it is a great. I like this album, Real Love. I think it's a really awesome album, and I think that "Stand By Love" is a huge, powerful song that is so amazing to listen to. So I had to show something by Simple Minds, of course.
Nice. All right, Stunty, where are you taking us next?
It's going to be my last one for today. I have a few more, but like, yeah, I need to. I have very little battery left, and for me, I'm going to show one of the two most obvious records, in my opinion, of 1991. Nirvana was the first one, and this is another record I bought on the week release, not the day it was released, but the weekend. I remember my dad taking me to the shop, and he let me buy 3 records, and one of these was this. Exactly.
That was like the last one I had left.
Sorry, Chris.
Oh, that's okay.
This is it's a weird record because we realize how influential it is and how unique it is. I mean, the band My Bloody Valentine, it took them over 20 years to do another record after this, like 25 years or so. No, about 20 years. And it's I remember loving it when it came out, but there was also something I didn't like about it. I used to say I love half of the song and the others I don't like, but actually I like them. It's just that they have like, it's so unique. There are songs that have this ethereal quality that is almost close to the most gospelish Beach Boys, and also the Cocteau Twins. So something that is, for me, almost new age, like Jürgen, the whole positivity. That there's something that was like almost too naive about the songs in it. That it took me a while to appreciate these songs. While some other songs are a little more greedy, even if globally this is just like bliss music. But bliss again, with the additional element that was new back then of noise, like really creating something that is lush and blissful through like harsh noise basically, but managing to have the harmonies and melodies to emerge through all that and to actually only be one. This is basically the Phil Spector record of the 90s, like the wall of sound. And it was, I guess, for most of the regular classic rock critics, when this came out, they didn't know how to process that, how to critique that, how to talk about that, because it was so different. And I mean, there's a whole story how this record almost bankrupted the label because it took them 4 years of studio to finish it. But this is just for the history books. The music itself is just, to me, it's still remarkable that people to this day discover this for the first time and realize how much it resonates with them, how this is special, because it's one of these alien records also that can only be done once by one band, if any.
Yeah, that record, I still don't get it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and there are songs, there are parts of the songs that I find myself really getting into and enjoying, but then I have this experience of, okay, it's time to end this song. It's going on for too long. I encounter that feeling a lot
Okay.
when I've been listening to it. I think it would be better if they would have just edited their ideas a little more. But
And by the way, this was not limited, but they only pressed 5,000 when it was released.
yeah. So, but yeah, that's a record that I've tried hard to listen to, and I've given it multiple chances. Radiohead is like that for me as well. I just don't connect with Radiohead. I don't know I just don't understand the fuss.
Well, Radiohead had the voice that can be like, you either like it or tolerate it or you don't.
Yeah, that's
With
probably a
My
lot to
Valentine,
do
there's
with
not
it.
that issue. The vocals can't be an issue.
Yeah, they remind me too much of, or Coldplay reminds me. It's just, to me, they're like the same band. Is it Janet Jackson or is it Michael Jackson? Is it Coldplay or is it Radiohead?
And you, Chris, what was your experience with My Billy Valentine?
Okay, so that was an album that I got at the time it came out on CD. It's one of those things I listen to. It's one of those albums where it's just like, it's a whole album. I don't really break it up into songs. It's just an album to play when I want to hear that My Bloody Valentine Loveless style. I don't really think of it as, oh, I want to play track 3. No, it's just I want to play Loveless. So, and that Richard's comment about it seeming too long, it just seems like it's more just like it's just like a whole, I don't remember how long the album is, 40, 45 minutes, however long the album is. It seems like that, especially since most of my listening to it over the years has been on CD, because my record is, when they did their latest reissue, like a year or so ago, is when I got it on vinyl.
Yeah, I got it on CD too, and the way you describe it, I think is quite fair. It's its own little universe. Like you want to, when you like it or are intrigued with it. I know that, like, I don't remember the songs on it. I know just when they come, I like this one better than this other one, or etc. But it's really, I want my love less fixed right now. I feel that that's what I need right now, and there's nothing else like that.
Yeah, fair enough. Well,
you'll get it one day, Richard. You'll get it.
The one. This is, I'm going to show a couple here because we're going to be running. We're going on,
I'm out of stuff to show, so.
Yeah.
I can take a couple.
I know this one, I think Stunty is not a fan. But the band live. This is.
I probably have managed
I think
to
this is
ignore
their
them.
debut, Mental Jewelry.
I don't have that one. I have a couple of their later ones, Throwing Copper and whatever the other one was called.
That cover looks uber 90s.
Yeah, it's the only live I have. I liked what they were doing with this, and I haven't listened to it in like a really long time, and I listened to it in preparation, for this. And I'll say that, yeah, I still like it, but it's not like a super big favorite. But another one that I listened to in preparation, I forgot how good this one is, and that is Sting's "The Soul Cages."
Great one.
This, in listening to the the entire his solo career, Dream of the Blue Turtles didn't age very well. I think it was a little bit too closely tied to Soviet politics at the time, with some of the songs. But this one still has a great meaning and impact. The songs, the melodies, I find it why should I cry for you? I'm mad about you. When the angels fall. And then, there's this melancholy expression that is really also beatific, if that's the right word to use, with it. Just nice. It's very strong material. I forgot how good it was. I'm going to leave this CD out for a while and give it some more listens because I haven't heard it for years.
My phone is starting to crackle because it's dying, so I'll leave you guys so you don't.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, thanks for joining us today, Stunty. Appreciate it.
Yeah, cool. It was fun. Bye, Jürgen. Bye, Chris. Bye.
Take care,
everyone.
So yeah, we can. If you Chris, you said you didn't have any more.
Yeah, I'm out. So if Jürgen has more to show, we'll skip to Jürgen.
Let me show a couple more before I go to you, Jürgen. I've got some more that I want to just kind of quickly cover. One of them also being U2. This is the Achtung Baby. I know that for some people, U2 is kind of like who was the other band? As people say, you either love them or you hate them, kind of thing. I do really like this particular release. Everything about it's a little bit. It's not a little bit. To me, it was a significant shift in their sound. They still had that. The Edge still had that style of guitar playing that is very signature to him, but there were other things that he was doing in the record that were different and gave the record a different feel. That I think was this the one that came right after Joshua Tree? Or was there a record in between?
There was
Rattle
Rattle and Hum
and
was
Hum.
after Joshua Tree.
It was after Rattle and Hum. It was between.
After Rattle and Hum, right? Yeah, which I don't even think of as being that proper of an album. I associate it with the movie, like a movie soundtrack, or the Rattle and Hum, which was a good one.
I actually don't have Acton Baby, I think, if I'm not wrong. But the songs I've heard are a little this and a little that. Have some.
Yeah.
It's not a perfect album. It's not one of the strongest I have
Yeah.
seen. But it is. I think it will be, since it's U2, it's a good one. But Numb is on that one, isn't it?
I have others, but one more I'll show here in this round. This is a one that I think either people love it or hate it, and this is Toad the Wet Sprocket, Fear. I like this record. It's an uncomfortable record because many of the songs are dealing with abuse, dealing with rape, dealing with very difficult subjects. And it's a tough listen, but I think it's a well done record. I really like this one. I wish I could get it on vinyl, but it's way too expensive. People want like $200-$300 for the vinyl release of this, and I'm like, I got it on CD. I'm okay for that.
Is it one of those like I was talking about earlier, where it hasn't been reissued and the originals are pretty uncommon?
Right, and so here, like you are also talking about, the this was released in CD. They were ubiquitous in the U.S.
Yeah.
The vinyl release was in Europe, was in Great Britain. And, that's where I pretty much see most of the sellers who are selling the vinyl copies. They're all over across the pond.
Yeah, because my Mary's Danish from earlier, I looked it up on Discogs. It was only released on vinyl in the Netherlands in 1991. And that's it. So...
But last year, so they played. So that's the only Toad the Wet Sprocket I have. But it is one of those that.
Walk on the Ocean was a great song, though.
Which one?
Walk on the Ocean. I don't think it isn't that one.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that was their big hit, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Very good. All right. So Jorgen, you have a few more?
Yes, I had. Did you have any more, or can I do my stuff?
I can quickly go through. I mean, I have like 5 or 6 more.
Okay.
But I can also quickly go through them because the men's final of the U.S. Open is going to be starting in like a half hour, and I want to watch.
This is a band that most likely few have heard of today. It is also proof that what blind finds can actually, how it can strike gold with it. I can't call it a blind buy because I got it for free. It was a record store in Stockholm that was shutting down, and they had a box outside of the shop saying take for free a whole lot, and I took 10 records, and this was one of them, and it proved to be really, really good. This is Temper, which is a boy and a girl group. The guy is a DJ, so this is more of a British 90s house dance style. Maybe not, it's sounding more 90 than 91, but it is in the sound. But it is really, really great, highly underrated. They only released this album, and it didn't become all that big, but I like it. I think has really some really great grooves.
I never heard of them.
I would assume not. They weren't all that big in UK. I'm not sure they wasn't big in UK either. These are bigger. Erasure's chorus, We'll Love to Hate You. Of course, it's in pop. I gotta have it. It's also one of my favorite Erasure's albums. Now I'm going to make Christopher and Zed really happy because they weren't too happy when I showed this artist's previous albums. But it's I Gotta Be Me. It is a great album. It's a great artist. My favorite Swedish singer-songwriter Peter Mark, and his album Sången de spelar när filmen är slut. Another great Peter Lemark album with some really great singer-songwriter pearls with personal lyrics. Bryan Adams, Waking Up the Neighbors.
Yeah, he sure did a lot of that.
Very commercial, but it is definitely one of my favorite Bryan Adams albums because it is a really great rocky groove, and the ballads are actually very good here. So definitely a great Bryan Adams album. And PM Dawn, a British call it.
I know PM Dawn. Yep.
Yeah, I remember they had a song or two that were popular in the U.S.
This is, for those who doesn't know, PM Dawn was a British house dance rap group. Also, one of the closest thing to rap that I have, even though it isn't in that genre. But it's very cool, very smooth. They had a big hit with when they sampled Spandau Ballet's "True" and made it "Saddle Drift on a Memory Bliss." And the song "Paper Doll" is also really relaxing, really groovy. And another one of my favorite bands, El Kwan. This is not their strongest album, but it is El Kwan is one of my favorite bands. An album called Legender ur den svarta hatten, Legends from the Black Hat. Really nice singer-songwriter style. I have a few more, but you can take your 5 first.
Yeah, I'll break them up. I got a couple obscure ones here.
Okay, PM Dawn are American. Sorry, I was wrong. It's Vinyl and Kicks.
The Meat Puppets. This is one that I picked up at the time when this was released.
Yeah, I know the Meat Puppets.
Yeah, I have a couple of their other records. Just really liked this particular one.
And
so
the earlier stuff was stuff that Kurt Cobain really liked.
Yeah, so this was 1991. Interesting, quirky. I really liked it. And this other one, this was kind of like a flash in the pan kind of thing. And this is La Tour. So this is a really strong. I don't know if you're familiar with this, Jorgen.
I don't know.
People are still having sex, I've heard.
Yes, yeah. But some of these other songs, like Alan's Got a New Hi-Fi, is just a really great song. Cold People, there's People Are Still Having Sex, Dark Sunglasses, Lorry Monster, a lot of really good songs. And this, he put this together. I forget his first name. His last name's Latour. Well, I can't remember his first name, but he put this together. And this is this is another situation where in the U.S. CD, but if you want to get the vinyl, it was a British release. That's where all the vinyl is. He never did anything after this. I think he tried one more project afterwards, and pretty much everybody thought it sucked. So, but this one is a good one. This was the Year of the Horse, Neil Young and Crazy Horse with Weld. This is such a killer set, live recording with great songs. So if you like Neil Young and his grunge material with the Crazy Horse, just a really killer one. I guess I'll quickly go through mine and then I'll let you close things out, Jorgen.
Sure.
But Violent Femmes. Why does the bird? Why do birds sing?
Yeah.
This is a really excellent release of theirs.
Too many people think the Violent Femmes are a one-album band, and that's not true at all.
Oh, it's not. They have a lot of really good stuff. We mentioned the Pixies earlier with Trompe Le Monde. This was my introduction to the Pixies. So even though, Surfer Rosa and Bossa Nova, are probably the better albums, this is my favorite one because it was the first one I ever listened to. So just really good. A live album that I ended up buying so that I could reduce the postage. This is No Means No, Live and Cuddly. Really good on the Alternative Tentacles label. I mean, I found the No Means No record that I'd been trying to get forever and ever and ever, and I wanted to make the postage. I could, if I bought one more record, the postage rate was going to go down because the person was in. It was going to be free because then I would go over the dollar limit. So I wasn't over that dollar limit yet, so I ordered this as well, and then so I could get the free shipping. Then the last one I'll show is this is a release of some DJ Chicago house that I found in a bin that's got some pretty good stuff on here. I haven't done a lot of buying acid house on vinyl. I'm starting to look for a bit more, but this is there's one particular song in this. Where is it here? Let me pull the wax out. It's on the DJ International label. This is Jackmaster 4. They do. There's a mix here of Boogie Oogie Oogie. But dang it, I think it is I Want You by Robert Bond. No, that's not it. It's now I can't remember, but it's a really good house mix on there. Those are my records for 1991. So
I just have two 7 inches and 2 CDs. I take the 7 inches first. These are songs that I like from albums that I wasn't that impressed by. First, my all-time favorite song by Cher, Love and Understanding. I really like the production in this one. Definitely a really sweet and great sounding Cher song. And of course, underrated, the comeback song from Chepao, the China in Your Hand band. This is a song called Whenever You Need Me. That was a great radio rock ballad that was a minor success. The album was a huge disappointment though. But to me, at that time, I saw it as the best song of '91. I may not go that far today, but I still think it's a great song. Paul Abdul, Spellbound. I mentioned it last week because it's produced, among others, by Peter Lord. But it is a really great soul pop album. And we mentioned a whole lot of rock music today, so why not at least do some rock so I can show that I'm a little bit rocky when I show Scorpions, in my opinion, by far best album, Crazy World. Some really great songs. I really like Send Me an Angel. I think that is maybe Scorpions' best song ever. My 1991.
1991. It was it was a really solid year for music in so many. I mean, that whole start off to the 90s decade.
I have a feeling that 1992 I won't be able to scrap that much because it wasn't my absolute best year. But
now,
yeah, I think
for me, 92, 93, 94 are going to be, hopefully I'll be able to be on the next few weeks because we're basically almost in my favorite 4-year time span here.
And starting about 94, I moved again. So there was a period where I didn't have any money for buying new stuff. So I'm probably going to run into a desert of titles during that time. Although,
like the late 90s, early 2000s, when I was in grad school, then starting off my career as a professor, I really fell off the radar for new music then.
Yeah, 97 and forward would be pretty tough for me. And 2000 and on, I'm not sure that I'm going to be here, because then I've stopped interest for new music after OO's died, more or less.
I do have quite a few records from that era, but they were all picked up within the last 10 years. So not necessarily.
But 94, I can show a lot of CDs from it. It's a year that has grown a lot since that time.
Yeah, the discussion that was going on about the the Sonic Youth and the Neil Young thing, I always remember the story. There's a venue here in Chicago called the Aragon Ballroom, and Sonic Youth opened for Public Enemy, and that concert went down as legend for two reasons. One, the Public Enemy crowd, of course, knew nothing about Sonic Youth. And when Sonic Youth played, it was considered to be one of the loudest concerts ever, that for many of the Public Enemy crowd, they just couldn't, they couldn't hear it. I mean, it was just too loud. The other thing was the crowd was stunned into silence. There was they didn't know what to think, of the music. So that was the day that there's articles, you can find them online about that. But yeah, it was the Aragon Ballroom here in Chicago. But yeah, Sonic Youth is definitely one of the bands of the 90s and the bands of my life, story of my life. So love that stuff. Well, thank you, Chris and Jorgen, for joining the stream today. Thank you all out there for watching. Don't forget that I am also on Instagram as NewsDude76. So it's a little bit different. No, I don't go by Calvinwazoo on Instagram. And of course, we've got a new video out for the Gunkles. If you haven't checked us out, we're probably worth following. I don't know. But next week probably will be 1992. I know I'm going on a work trip this week, so I don't know how prepared I will be for next week. But the next show in the series will be talking 1992. And everybody, take care, and remember to pray for the people inside your head, for they won't be there when you're dead.